So thank you everyone for being here. As you can see, we are going to do two important actions tonight. We're going to take action to stop the Mountain Valley Pipeline and the dirty deal. And then we're going to hear from our Virginia Director, Victoria, about what we can expect for Virginia's General Assembly in early 2023. And then we will take action proactively to support the bills that we want to pass and to stop the attacks that we know are coming on climate. So to get us started, I just want to set the groundwork a little bit because we're going to be hearing about the dirty deal, and we're going to hear about the longer fight against the Mountain Valley Pipeline. So to just add a little bit of context for that, right now, the name of the game for us is to get investors to pull out of this dangerous fossil fuel boondoggle. And that's what everything we're doing is building towards. We have submitted public comments, we have submitted lawsuits, we have lobbied our representatives, and public opinion is starting and continuing to build, and people are continuing to say no. This has been working and we are very close. What we have to do is to keep delaying the MVP until everyone that's put money in it realizes what we all already know, is that it's wrong for the earth and it's wrong for them. And so as you hear Jamie describe the current actions about the national level, and I'll talk a little bit about some water crossing permits later today, that's the context that we're going in. So with that, I will kick it over to Jamie to talk through what's going on right now.
Thanks, Xander. So Manchin's dirty deal would greenlight the Mountain Valley Pipeline. It would just put in legislation that all authorities have to give it permission to build, which first of all is unprecedented as far as I'm aware. The courts have rejected this and said you cannot build this pipeline safely. No one has built a gas pipeline through geology this steep, through karst this unstable before, and it just can't be done safely, and that's what the courts have ruled. And this would be the legislative branch coming in and overruling the judicial branch on a specific project, which is just not how our division of powers is supposed to work, and it's really bad governance in addition to being a really bad project. But in addition to specifically greenlighting the Mountain Valley Pipeline, it also rolls back really bedrock environmental regulations and safeguards that have kept communities safe for half a century. And it does that in a few ways. One, it allows the president to select 25 energy projects that become expedited and are free from almost all regulations. And this is really dangerous because that's a rolling list. And you can imagine a Republican president in the future picking a project, ramming it through, picking a project, ramming it through, and just having this list that in 4 years, they can get a lot of projects through, pretty much dodging the National Environmental Policy Act, Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act entirely. Additionally, across the board, it shortens the window to challenge EPA rulings in court from 6 years to 5 months. So if the EPA makes a really bad ruling, the only way for a community to say, like, you actually aren't following the law in that ruling is to bring a lawsuit. And 5 months is just not enough time. There are a lot of communities who would be impacted by a project that if they only got 5 months notice, they couldn't bring a lawsuit because you have to find a lawyer, you have to build a case, you have to find the funds to do all of that. It's a very resource and time intensive process. And by shortening it to 5 months, you are essentially taking away access to the courts from a lot of communities who just don't have the resources or lawyers on hand. It would also take away a governor's ability to reject fossil fuel projects under the Clean Water Act in their state. This is something that governors in our region have used to reject pipelines before, and we think that they should have that authority. And it would also cap National Environmental Protection Act review at 2 years. And Manchin likes to say this is not rolling back environmental regulations, it is expediting them by doing things like saying it has to happen in 2 years. What happens if 2 years passes and the National Environmental Protection Act has not finished their review? Does it just get totally greenlit, regardless of what NEPA says? That part is very unclear to me, and I think it's really dangerous to just set a hard cap like that. Much better policy is to invest in staff who are working on these permits. There are bottlenecks because we just don't have the staff to handle the volume of projects. And the Inflation Reduction Act that passed in August actually did spend about $1 billion hiring new staff to process these applications. And that's the kind of permitting reform that we do want to see. But the dirty deal, it's a bad deal. And that's my quick synopsis on what's actually in it. And Xander was out there this morning pretending to be a zombie, because this is a zombie deal that just keeps coming back to life, even though we have killed it multiple times. And I think that's kind of cute. But what we're going to do tonight is really important because, as we know, the Mountain Valley Pipeline is just one part of the dirty deal, but it looms large within this prospect. And Senator Kane's opposition to it is really important. And just to go through again what's going to happen tonight, or this week, we're not exactly sure when this is going to happen, but the House has passed a version of the National Defense Authorization Act that gives money to the military. That now has to pass the Senate, and to pass the Senate, it's going to go through the Senate floor. On the Senate floor, whenever it reaches the Senate floor, Majority Leader Schumer is going to move an amendment to add Manchin's dirty deal to the National Defense Authorization Act, and everyone will have to vote yes or no. And it will be added if they can get 60 votes. So Schumer needs to count to 60, which is hard to do because Minority Leader McConnell is encouraging all of his members to vote against this deal, in large part because they are just mad at Manchin and they want to defeat Manchin in 2024 and they don't want to give him any victories. They have their own sort of reasons, but they are deeply opposed to Manchin's dirty deal, and they're encouraging all their members to vote against it. But it's possible that 10 or so Republicans could go against McConnell and vote for this dirty deal because, you know, oil industry might be lobbying them heavily for it. And that's why it's really important that we also have a subsection of Democratic senators who say, no, I reject this dirty deal and vote against it. Last week, Senator Merkley sent a letter to Majority Leader Schumer signed by.
You just muted, Jamie.
Sorry, I'm not sure how I got muted. But last week, Senator Merkley sent a letter to Senator Schumer saying we will vote against the National Defense Authorization Act if it includes the dirty deal. And there were 6 senators on that letter. One of them was Senator Kane, who, as you can see in this quote on the slide, has taken a great stance against the dirty deal, largely because it includes the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And everyone on this call has done such great work over the past 8 or more years to stigmatize the Mountain Valley Pipeline and build the public support against it. And we've moved Senator Kane. Senator Warner has still not taken a public stance and is still a swing vote on this. It is in his backyard, and we think that we could get him to vote against this if we just keep the pressure on. And that's what we're going to do tonight to make sure that Virginia has 2 senators voting against the dirty deal on the NDAA. That's my summary.
Thank you, Jamie. We have time for 2 or 3 questions. JP put one in the chat a while ago, which says, how much overlap, if any, is there with these changes cited here and the permitting reforms that a lot of Dems have championed in Manchin's deal?
I'm not sure what provisions you're referring to that Dems have championed. I can say that a few weeks ago, the SEEK committee in the House, which stands for Sustainable Energy and Environment Committee, put out a positive version of permitting reform. But as you can tell by the fact that only 6 senators signed that letter, the majority of Democratic senators do support this plan. And they make the case that it's necessary for building out transmission lines, and we need to roll back these standards in order to build renewables fast enough. We just really believe that we can build a better future where we are off fossil fuels without throwing communities under the bus. And that's the world that we're going to fight really hard for. And great question. The Mountain Valley Pipeline is a natural gas or methane gas pipeline that takes oil. It goes straight through the center of West Virginia and then cuts across the sort of southwest portion of Virginia, where it stops in sort of middle central South Virginia, and then connects to another project called the Southgate Extension that takes it into North Carolina. Xander, you want to take this question?
I will. Cynthia, thank you so much for being willing to write. We have two options for you. If you're in Virginia, you can stay tuned for our next action where I'm going to model a phone call and voicemail that we can all leave together. And we've also built a very easy web page that will contact your senator wherever you are if you have a senator. So those are actually, Cynthia, that's a great segue because those are the next two actions we're going to take. So I can move us on right now. So this is what we're going to do. I am going to ask people to go ahead and get out their phones and yes, there will be more things to do. I'm going to lead the phone action and then we can come back to questions in the chat. So we can go ahead and get our phones out and you can listen to me while I call Senator Warner because I have been wanting to talk to this man for a while. And so the things that are important to remember are on the screen. The message that you leave can be incredibly simple. It can be, I'm a Virginia resident and I ask you to vote no on the dirty deal and any must-pass legislation. I'll put this up for you when you get ready to take this in. Or if you want to share a little bit more of your story and why that matters to you, then you can do that as well. And so I'm going to do that now.
Thank you for calling the office of Senator Mark Warner. If you would like to leave an opinion for the senator, please press 1. If you would like to speak with a member of the senator's staff, thank you for calling with your opinion for Senator Mark Warner. Your opinion is quite important to him, so please leave a message for the senator after the tone. Thank you.
Hello, Senator Warner. My name is Xander Pellegrino. I'm a Virginia resident. I'm from the Shenandoah Valley and I have voted for you in every election that you've run in. And I'm calling to urge you to vote against the dirty deal in any must-pass legislation. I'm incredibly concerned about the impacts on our climate. And like Senator Kaine has mentioned, I've never voted for Senator Manchin. I've never cast a vote for Senator Schumer. And so I think you and Senator Kaine should be the ones speaking for me, not them. Thank you so much for your time. And we're done. So if everyone could take 1 second and I will bring us back at 7:17. I will put actually Victoria, can you put the script and the phone numbers in the chat? And we can all do that. And I will go ahead and make my call to Kaine while everyone else does theirs. Thank you all so much.
So I'm putting the script in the chat. Phone numbers.
Okay, I will give everyone about another minute while I still see some phones up. Okay. Jackson and JP get another 30 seconds because they feel like talking a lot. And I appreciate everyone taking time to do this. And I'm seeing the messages in the chat that Kane's phone system is only available during working hours. And I'm sorry about that. And so you can call tomorrow. And we actually have an action right now that you can take. And so thank you, Victoria, for putting this in the chat. The next thing that we can do is to never do anything alone. You'll also get this link in the email follow-up from the notes, but we also encourage you to take 1 second and grab this link from the chat and text it to 3 family or friends, and then they can just put in their address and it will automatically
I'd like to get the
it will automatically send a message to their representatives if they put in their address. So that's another thing that we can continue to do to amplify this message. And so now we are moving on from the dirty deal actions to continuing the fight against the MVP. And what I want to share is that there was a very recent development. This actually happened within the past 24 hours. So the MVP requires a lot of permits in order to travel the hundreds of miles that it goes from West Virginia all throughout Virginia. And our current environmental regulations require it to submit specific environmental reviews. And the MVP Corporation has amended one of its current permits. And what it's saying is, even though this permit isn't granted yet, we're going to take a step forward and we're going to go ahead and change 2 design components in how we cross rivers to make it a little more environmentally friendly. This is a tactic that fossil fuel companies have used a lot in the past. They are really trying to greenwash their project and make it look like they are being stewards of the earth by having less impactful water crossings while they still pump dangerous fracked gas throughout all our communities. And so in order to quickly respond to this, what we're going to do is going to have a letter writing party in early January where you'll get much more details about this particular proposal. We can answer questions about the technical changes to the design after we've had a little bit more time to dig into it. And we can share some of the history of the MVP's record on environmental protection. They have over 300 violations of their current permits that are already issued. And they're trying to get ahead of that argument. And we want to continue to raise the truth in this public comment process. So that's the last MVP action that we can take today. This will also go out in an email, but we have another link to register for our comment writing party. And if you've come to a comment writing party with us in the past, you'll know that you'll get a little more notice than me springing a phone call on you in the middle of this session. We'll have an in-depth presentation, then we'll have time to think about your story, and then you'll go into a breakout room and link your own personal story with the impacts of this project, and we'll help you write your comment. So that will happen January 4th, and it will continue the fight against the MVP. And now I will pause for a few questions. I think I can probably take two. Victoria, I think you can put the URL for a thank you in the chat for Richard. I can take two questions before we move on to Victoria sharing what some of you may have come for, our legislative preview. Okay, I don't see any questions right now, so I'm going to pass it on to Victoria and give you all a moment of appreciation for absorbing so much information at once, and let you know that you will get all the slides and the links in an email, and we're always available to talk things through.
Hey everyone, good to see y'all. Thanks for teeing me up, Sander. We are moving towards the state legislative session rather quickly here in Virginia. And I just want to give a little bit of political context before I talk about our priorities this session. You may know that last year, Virginia elected Governor Youngkin, Republican, who has shown himself to not be a friend to clean energy development or the climate movement in general. However, who has shown some interest in rate reform and addressing rising energy costs. And his rhetoric and language is often not in line with ours, but there is some potential for us to pass some legislation on rate reform and energy burden this year. So I just wanted to provide that context. Another piece of important information is that this is a short year for the Virginia legislative session. Legislative session is usually 45 days or 60 days in a budget year or in a non-budget year. So it should be 45 days if everything goes to plan. There are always whispers of amendments to that plan, but we're looking at a 45-day session and it starts January 11th. So the last day to sign bills or to send bills to the governor's desk will be February 25th. All that said, Xander, if you want to pop over to the next slide. Major priority here in Virginia, where we've made incredible progress on climate over the last couple of years, is protecting that progress. There are several policies that we saw come under attack last year and that we again expect to be attacked this year. So we're looking at those here. The big deal this year is clean car standards. So Virginia has joined with 14 or 17 who have adopted, 3 other states have adopted some form of them. Other states that have joined California in choosing more aggressive vehicle emission standards. So we passed clean car standards in 2021. Basically, this phases in electric vehicles as a percentage of new car sales. Frankly, it's no big deal because automakers already want to do this and the targets are fairly in line with major automakers' plans. However, only states that sign up for clean car standards are going to actually receive the vehicles. They don't want to send them to states where they're not going to be sold. And here in Virginia, we have a huge problem with transportation emissions. It's over half of our emissions in Virginia. So while it's great that we're moving towards 100% clean energy, what would be even better is if we can start to address tailpipe emissions from cars. 7 bills have already been filed to repeal the standards, so we know this is a major priority for fossil fuel interests who want to entrench gas in our culture for the coming years, and we'll be working to make sure that we maintain our participation. Another policy you may have heard about from us is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. This is another initiative we've joined with 10 or more other states. And this caps emissions from power plants and makes polluters pay for programs that here in Virginia address flooding, so creating resiliency in our communities, but also really critically help lower energy bills by weatherizing homes. And there's a large chunk of that money that's dedicated to weatherizing low-income homes. So it's really essential to making sure people are able to live comfortably in their homes at the same time as it reduces the energy burden and reduces our energy usage. Last year, we saw a lot of bills to try and repeal our participation in RGGI. We also saw some movement of funds from their original sources in the bill. Because of the governor's independent and illegal plan to repeal Reggie through the Air Board, we may not see as rigorous of an attempt in the legislature to straight repeal Reggie. However, we do expect that some legislators may attempt to move around funds. And we'll find out more by December 30th when all bills have been filed. The third major policy and one of our crowning achievements in Virginia is our plan to get to 100% clean energy by 2050. So the governor has outlined that it is a major priority for him to significantly amend the Clean Economy Act, which is what VCA stands for. And we will surely see some legislators pick up some of his suggestions that he put in his energy plan recently. So something that could happen are weakening the closure dates. So coal plants are supposed to come offline in 2025, or could be trying to reopen the code every 5 years. So all of these things could just get in the way of our transition, make things unclear for developers, and we want to just be blazing forward with our plan. So I am going to move forward. How am I doing on time, Senator?
Good on time.
Cool. Something that we're excited about this year is trying to create a workable community solar or shared solar program for Virginia. So in Virginia, if you live in Dominion territory, so if your utility provider is Dominion, and you can't put solar on your rooftop for any number of reasons, maybe you don't own your house, maybe the angle isn't right, any number of factors, you can sign up for a shared solar program where you will basically sign up for the program and the utility will build a corresponding amount of solar to fulfill the needs of the program customers. So you get to choose clean energy, incentivize and build out. And because solar is, after building it, there's no fuel costs, it's our cheapest energy source. So you get to save some money at the same time as you get to choose clean energy. The problem is that, unfortunately, the program currently has a flat $55 minimum per month. In our view, this is patently absurd. Solar is cheap. There's no reason why you should be paying more than other electricity customers to choose clean energy. So we're going to be working to set a more reasonable minimum bill so that folks actually want to sign up for the program. And we also want to support efforts, even though most of our members aren't in APCO territory, in Appalachian Power territory. We want to make sure that everybody in Virginia has the opportunity to choose clean energy and save money. So we certainly support efforts to expand the program to APCO territory as well, towards Southwest and Western Virginia. And then finally, coming back to our number one emissions problem in Virginia, which is transportation. Moving to electric vehicles is essential and important. But really the quickest way we can reduce our emissions is simply to drive fewer miles. And the best way that we can do that is by incentivizing people to not get in their cars, but instead to walk, bike, and use transit. And then importantly, you know, our transit systems are already relied upon by hundreds of thousands of people every day. We want to make sure those are safe and pleasant experiences. So currently we have a program that funds zero and low fare transit. So if you're ever hanging out in Richmond, then you may know that the bus is free because of this program, which is awesome for the time being. And then also that promotes regional connectivity. So trying to connect different bus routes to make sure that folks can get where they need to go. These are both excellent and important use of funds. The problem is that because they're new and somewhat niche, they've been underdrawn from. So now the funds for this program are kind of overflowing. And when legislators see that, they're like, oh, this program has too much money, and they move it somewhere else. So we stand the risk of losing these programs altogether unless we find ways to use this money in the short term. What we're proposing is to allow the program to fund bus stops and pedestrian infrastructure. So really basic things like covers for bus stops, sidewalks near bus stops, lighting, things like that make transit more attractive to use and that make it safer for people. And then we also want to provide some guidance for transit agencies on how to transition to zero emission fleets, because a lot of the transit agencies around the state have expressed immense interest in doing that and just frankly don't know how. They need some official guidance from the state. And the program that I'm referring to, without getting too much into details, called TRIP. And I'll do is I'll make sure that Xander has our little cheat sheet of legislative priorities to send y'all as a follow-up to this program. So to this so that you have all that information in one place. That was a lot at once. I'm happy to take questions.
I have a question from our solar open house on Saturday. I think Bob, yeah, Bob is still here. He asked me for clarification on Dominion's stated rationale for why they need to charge $55 in the first place, so that we can better counter that. Like, what is their reason for doing that?
Yeah, I will try not to bore anyone too much. Basically, they have included, based on mythical numbers, transmission and distribution costs in the monthly fee. Distributed energy resources like solar aren't a burden on transmission and distribution infrastructure. In fact, they ease the burden by lowering congestion. So they actually make it cheaper for us to use those systems. So it's pretty absurd that they are including those costs. And again, they're not basing them on any particular calculations. The SCC, our regulatory body, was shown 3 numbers and they picked the middle one. And you're right that it is close to the standard single apartments consumed per month. It's based on, again, a mythical 1,000 kilowatt hour customer. It's actually closer to 1,100 in Virginia, but that's where they ended up with that number.
Okay. Oh yeah, we have some stuff in the chat. Victoria.
Yeah, for countering these issues, I mean, the best thing that you all can do is to be in touch with your legislators. You'll just hear it from us over and over again. They pay attention to how many people talk to them, but they also pay attention to how passionate the people that are talking to them are. So if this is an issue that you email them now, about a month before session, and then you call them in the first week of session and they're reading about it, maybe you submit an LTE and they're reading about it in a local paper. It's something that just increases salience for them and is on their radar. Because frankly, there's thousands of bills in the legislative session. There's a lot to pay attention to. And so we just have to put things on their radar over and over again. The next question. No, the fee is no, you're absolved from if the panels are producing all of the energy that you need, then you're not also getting a volumetric charge for kilowatt hour usage. But if the panels, for whatever reason, maybe it's December, are not completely offsetting your energy usage, then you would get an additional volumetric charge. And for maybe some of the wonky like solar stuff, I'm happy to connect with folks personally.
Okay, then I will thank everyone for their attention, and I will actually, okay, we can see the screen. Yes. So just like Victoria said, the best thing to do is to, and Ting mentioned this in the chat as well, to speak consistently, to speak passionately, and to speak targetedly to your legislators. And we have made it fairly easy to do that. I put 2 links in the chat. We have actually grouped our defensive priorities that Victoria outlined, the defending Reggie, the VCEA, and the Clean Car Standards, all in one click to send form, saying, keep our climate progress. And then we have looped some of our proactive policies in one form as well, saying, take us forward on energy justice. And so those are the 2 links that you'll see in the chat. You'll also get them in the email. because they are so easy and because consistency and frequency is one part of moving our legislators, in addition to telling a good story, I would thank you all for making calls to legislators and ask that you do some state level action and fill out these forms as well. And then I will go ahead and release everyone and say thank you all very much. And I really appreciate you spending your busy Tuesday evening with us. And if you have not been in touch with an organizer, I see some new names on this call, then you will be contacted by the local organizer in your area. Maggie, the letter writing party is virtually at 6:30. Yeah, and that'll be in the follow-up email as well. Thank you all so much. And we will, like I said, there'll be a local organizer in touch if you haven't heard from us yet.